Hello and welcome to Iron News TV. Finally, we're back and we're here to stay as West Ham enter the second half of the Premier League season. On the show today, we'll be looking back at a good result against Bristol City in the FA Cup, reflecting in general on a terrific season for West Ham so far, as well as looking forward to a tricky fixture against Liverpool. I'm delighted to welcome on the sofa two famous faces in and around West Ham. We've got ex-first team coach Wally and Guardian sports writer Jacob Steinberg. Gentlemen, it's great to have you on the show. Obviously, we got the result we needed against Bristol City. We did it the hard way, you could say. We left it late to get the winner, and we played pretty without a lot of energy or much attacking threat for most of the game. Jacob, what were your thoughts on everything?
I think that it's probably one of those games where it's the result basically that matters rather than the performance. The performance wasn't great, but there have been many times, I think, in the past where West Ham have come up short against teams of that nature. Certainly, under, say, Harry Redknapp, they lost loads of games against lower league opposition. So, especially in the context of that weekend where you saw Chelsea going out at home to Bradford, City going out to Middlesbrough at home, and even Cambridge holding Manchester United, I think ultimately it was just the result that mattered. But I think that obviously if they played like that against a Premier League side, then it would have been curtains after about 20 minutes. Yeah,
definitely. And then, Wally, going on from that, do you think that West Ham, I mean, we've sort of had a little bit of a blip maybe since Christmas, not playing as well as we were. Why do you think that is?
He was talking about Song previously. I think he had a great influence on the team when he first came in. I just get the feeling that he was looking to enhance his Champions League credentials and get a move to a top 4 club.
Okay.
That hasn't materialised. Whether his dip in form has coincided with that, I don't know. I'm not sure I agree with the performance about the Bristol City game, because, you know, not many teams will play like Bristol City played against West Ham in the Premier League. You know, there's a lot more possession of the ball, and I thought it was a good performance, really, because if you look at the games where Premier League teams went out, it's because of the contrast in styles.
Yeah.
Lower league teams play a lot more direct. They put teams under a little bit more pressure. They put the defenders under more pressure, and I think you know, it was a good result to come out of. You had to be in the hat, and you were. And I don't agree with leaving it late. I think the later you left it, the better, because there would have been an onslaught coming at you because they had nothing to lose.
And obviously it was that man, Sako, again helping West Ham out. But there's a talk at the moment of Senegal filing an official complaint to try and get him banned and possibly West Ham kicked out of the FA Cup. I'm not sure how much of that is actually credible at the moment, but what do you make of those comments, Jacob?
I think it would probably be the most West Ham thing I could imagine if they were to get kicked out of the FA Cup for fielding Sako. I think remember them getting kicked out of the League Cup in '99, having beaten Villa, and for fielding a cup-type player, Manny Omoyini, and losing the replay.
Yeah.
So the precedents are there, the history is there when it comes to West Ham, but they certainly, FIFA certainly could ban Sako until the end of the tournament, which obviously would be a huge blow given that he's come back in goal-scoring form. I don't think Valencia really had the best game on Sunday against Bristol City, so hopefully it won't come to that for West Ham, but there's every chance that FIFA could turn around and sympathise with Senegal's point of view.
Sure.
Whether West Ham feel they've done anything, whether they have the defence.
Of course,
what they've done. Sullivan's come out today and said that they were justified in playing him. He couldn't go to Africa to play in it, but we'll have to wait and see, really, with what FIFA do.
I mean, obviously, West Ham pay his wages, and they invited a medical team from Senegal to come and check Sako, and they didn't. So do you not think that maybe West Ham have a better case?
Well, I'm not being really in touch with it. I know that the national sides have first call on it. If they've been lax in what they've done in Senegal, Sam's pretty switched on with stuff like this. You know, he would know the ins and outs of what he's allowed to do and what he's not allowed to do. And I'll be surprised if the Senegalese FA are aware enough to get one over on the two Davids and Sam in this one. I would imagine everything will be covered.
Earlier in the week, I caught up with James Longman from the Knees Up Mother Brown podcast, who also offered his thoughts on the Sako situation. Delighted to say I'm joined now by Knees Up Mother Brown podcast host, James Longman. James, welcome.
Nice to be here.
So, FA Cup, we're through to the next round after an interesting performance against Bristol City. What do you make of that display?
Delighted. I'm delighted we're through. I'm not delighted with a display. I love the FA Cup. I know a lot of people have fallen out of love with it, but especially this year because it feels like we've got a genuine chance and have had a really good season so far. It feels like this is something we could finally, you know, go the distance in. So I'm delighted we're through. It was tough. It was always going to be tough.
Yeah.
You're playing lower league opposition. They are up for it, like really up for it. We've started quite badly the last few matches. You know, since probably before Christmas. We haven't had a great first half performance. And they deserve better, I think. They deserved at least a draw, but it's lovely to come out of it having won.
Well, interestingly, Sam set up in that sort of 4-2-3-1 formation again, which hadn't worked well against Hull, and yet he's persisting with it. Why do you think that is?
Well, what I read was that he was trying to nullify their wing-backs. So I think the threat down the wings from Bristol was why he reverted back to that formation. And I can only think that's why he kind of stuck with it. But when he did shake it up with bringing on the subs, then it made a difference noticeably. But it's a tough one because sometimes he does revert back to that formation, and that is a frustrating formation for us because we know it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But to a certain extent, it did nullify their attack. So swings and roundabouts.
And then obviously we have that man Sako back and scoring again. But this is sort of seemed to upset the Senegal officials a fair bit, and there's a lot of talk about them making some official complaints. What do you make of that whole situation?
Rightly so. I mean, it must be really tough thinking he's going to be out for 5 weeks. But then you never know who's telling the truth, do you? They always say, whenever someone's injured, they're like, he's out for... Remember Andy Carroll? That was the opposite. He was like out for a month, then he was out for 6 months. You know, Sako is meant to be out for 5 to 6 weeks, and suddenly he's back after a few weeks. So I love having him back, you know, and he's a remarkable player for us. He's brilliant. And if I was Senegalese, I'd probably be upset.
Which he's not, by the way.
Which I'm not.
Just to confirm.
Half Senegalese. But they're doing all right, aren't they?
Yeah.
They've got 4 points, so they're going to be all right.
Yeah. And then another player to touch on, perhaps, Alex Song didn't have the best of games, and he seems to be a bit inconsistent in his form at the moment. Do you think that's something that will continue, or is it just a minor blip in his brilliant season so far?
I hope it's a minor blip. At the last game that I think he played well in was when he came on as a sub against Chelsea. Arsenal was really off colour, and he seems to have been off colour since. And I hope it's only a blip because when he's on song, sorry, bad pun, he's remarkable and he's brilliant for us, and he's changed our season. Yeah. And you know, everyone moves for him. He's got so much time on the ball. He makes so much time on the ball. He's outstanding for us. So I hope it's only a blip because, you know, he wants to show himself off in the best possible light. Yeah. To do it for us is brilliant. And I feel like he needs to step it up. It didn't seem like he was that bothered with Bristol. I'm not surprised he got taken off because he was he kept losing the ball right in front of our defence.
Wasn't tracking back much either.
No. So Sam made the right decision bringing him off. But I hope it's a blip because I think he's brilliant. Yeah, hopefully he'll step up for the next bigger games. Then finally, obviously West Brom away in the next round. Could have been better, but it could have been worse at the end of the day. It's certainly winnable. What are your thoughts going into that? I despise Tony Pulis. And it's so frustrating. The people I didn't, bizarrely, the people I didn't want was Pardew or Pulis, and we got Pulis away. But I'm hoping that they've got Burnley and Spurs between. So if they have a couple of bad results there, they're going to focus on the league. I think you tweeted about it. So I'm hoping that'll put them off. And Pulis is just defends, and it'll be really tough. But the omens are there. People say we beat West Brom away last time to get to win the FA Cup in 1980. Yep. So when you hold on to those superstitions, those omens, you think, oh, maybe it'll be okay. So hopefully we've got a good chance of that. Yeah, and you've got to beat these teams to get there. Oh yeah, I'm positive. We're going to win. Excellent.
And then looking back on the season so far, obviously it's been terrific for West Ham. We're playing much better attacking football, scoring more goals, and as a result, the fans have responded really well. Upton Park, the atmosphere's been a lot better. Why in 6 months has there been such a big change in our fortunes, do you think, Jacob?
Well, I think the recruitment has been absolutely superb. It's probably that summer was probably one of the best transfer windows that West Ham have had in the last 10 or 15 years. I think even before they got Alex Song in late on, clearly the players who came in were good signings like Kouyaté and Valencia and Cresswell as well, an underrated player, good signing from Ipswich, and Jenkinson. So they got players who could take them on to a slightly higher level. I think that sometimes the criticism they got for playing, maybe more limited or agricultural football, whatever you want to call it, whatever term you want to give it. Yeah. If you have players who are maybe not so technical as the players they have now, then you have to cut your cloth accordingly, and that's what Sam did. I think that he's a pragmatic manager. If you give him good players, then he can sculpt a good team, and if you give him players who maybe need to play in a certain way, then he's equally comfortable doing that. And it's hard to watch sometimes.
Yeah.
Last season it certainly was, but this season I think he's proven a few people wrong. That he can adapt.
Definitely. And Wally, would you agree with those comments that sort of the new players that have been brought in have helped a lot in turning around the squad's fortunes?
Well, the longer you stay in the Premier League and the more financially stable you become, the better players you can recruit, and the better players will want to come to your club. So, you know, the first couple of years getting into the Premier League and then stabilising in the Premier League were critical. Now you've had 3 years in there, you can start attracting better players. Alex Song coming to West Ham from Barcelona is a great example of that. As I said before, he may have been doing it for his own ends, but that certainly puts, you know, the West Ham into players' mindsets about, you know, it's a progressive club that they want to come to. Those two players have come in, they've been given game time, Valencia and Sako, and they've done really well. But you know, the two fullbacks have been excellent recruitment as well. Cresswell was, you know, was always highly thought of as a good player.
Well, obviously, speaking of players, I mean, last season we didn't really have a lot of candidates to choose from, but I suspect there'll be a few more when they announce the Hammer of the Year at the end of this season. Halfway through, who would be your half Hammer of the Year, Jacob?
I'd probably say Diafra Sako for the goals, and coming from the second division in France, having never played in a top division in European football before, to hit the ground running so quickly for West Ham, and scoring against big teams as well, against Manchester United, Liverpool, City, the winner, is a great achievement from him. So, Sako.
And Wally, would you agree? Or?
No, I'd give it to, I'm funny like that, I'd give it to Noble. I still think he's the glue that makes everything happen there. In my experience there, he's the best trainer there every day. You know, he's out first, last in. Just looking at the game on Sunday, you know, the clearance off the line, that's his job. He's been told to do it. He hasn't forgot it. He's done exactly what he's meant to do. Kept you in the cup.
That's fair enough. What about Aaron Cresswell? Probably worth having.
Yeah, you know, I haven't seen enough of West Ham. Only what I've seen on the TV, but you know, I always liked him as a player. His running's terrific. His stats are good, and he gets the ball in the box. He was recommended to me a few years ago by a couple of the Ipswich boys, and you know, it's no secret everyone knew he's a good player. It was just about who could get him.
Well, moving on from the players to the manager, someone we have to speak about, obviously, Sam Allardyce. He's doing a terrific job this season, got us playing well above expectations, top half of the league, but he's still yet to sign that all-important new deal. What do you make of that ongoing situation?
Well, yeah, I mean, it runs out in the summer. I think they'll have a very hard time not offering him a new deal if the season continues in this way. If they go far in the cup or finish top 8, there'd be no justification for not giving him one. I think it's just probably something that's going to be dealt with rather at the end of the season. I think sometimes you'll see these kind of deals done towards the end of the season. No, say Arsene Wenger left it very late last season at Arsenal as well. So maybe they're just not looking to distract themselves at the moment. I think it would be something that'll be tied up there. I don't foresee a problem summer like the amount of speculation that there was like last summer with Allardyce.
And obviously, Wally, having worked with the man, will this sort of thing bother Allardyce that he hasn't got a new deal yet, or will he just get on with it?
Sam will be incredibly relaxed about his position because he's got confidence in the fact that he's doing well with the team. If West Ham decides to go in a different direction, you know, there'll be no shortage of clubs that want a manager that can look at Sam's body of work and take him. You know, I can see the only problem might be this if there's a clash over, you know, transfers and budgets and who's picking who and which players Sam signs and which players are signed, you know, by different agents.
Well, obviously on that note, David Sullivan is someone who's apparently clashed with Sam a few times over transfers, and sort of seemingly they go about their business on their own without too much common ground a lot of the time. Do you foresee that maybe having a problem with Gold wanting Sam to stay, but Sullivan maybe wanting to move on?
I'm not so sure that Sam would want to move on because he's, you know, it's a job that when I spoke with him about signing there, that he did have a long-term vision for it, and the vision was to get into the Olympic Stadium, and you know, as I said, stabilise in the Premier League, get more funds, get better players, take them into the Olympic Stadium. So I don't think he wouldn't want to walk away from the club, that's for sure. But you know, if it would be a shame if the clash did occur over the you know, the brownie points for recruitment and stuff like that. I know there's a new guy who just works there, that Tony Henry just works, I think, just with David Sullivan. So if they can find some common ground, I'm sure they'll be fine. The two Davids are bright fellas. Sam's a smart guy. They've got something good going on here. It would be a shame if there wasn't somebody in the middle just to make sure that those egos sort of didn't clash and put a kibosh on something that looks from the outside as though it's going well.
And then, Jacob, if you were in David Sullivan or David Gold's position, how long would you want to give Sam? Would you want to sort of see him just to the Olympic Stadium, or maybe look for him to be there beyond that?
I mean, who knows? They're set up.
Junior might be ready to take over by then.
Yeah, maybe. Well,
I hope not.
Already picking the team. Who knows? But I think that it's all set up towards the Olympic Stadium now. I think they're in a good position to. They're now set up not to be in a position where they'll be in relegation trouble, hopefully, going into it, which would be obviously a disaster if they were in the Championship when they went into the Olympic Stadium. But I think Sam, I would agree with Wally, he's onto a winner really here at the moment. I can't see any reason why he would want to walk away. It's probably about the best job he could get in England at the moment. If you look at the location and the fact they're going into this stadium, it's hard to see exactly what other job would be available for him that would be equivalent. So from his point of view, he'd probably want as long a contract as possible. For again though, he's worked on pretty short contracts at West Ham, so I don't think it would be a problem either way. I think if he was to do a 2-year, then they come back to it and have the same kind of situation now. But yeah, I think it's fairly relaxed.
Moving on to the transfer window, obviously it hasn't been the busiest period for West Ham this time around, but there's still a few days to go. Obviously we've had a few things like Zarate going out, Daniil Henry coming in. Guys, if you look now, there'll be a few odds up on the screen. Do you fancy any of these? Maybe Darren Fletcher, he's been hotly talked about to join the club. Wally, you think perhaps maybe that could be a signal that Alex Song will be going in the summer?
Well, there's a few midfield players on there, so you know, I don't know what the source for this is, but that was my initial take on the Song situation. When West Ham got him, I thought he'd be using that to catapult himself into the Champions League position clubs. If that hasn't happened, that may be because of the dip. But you know, Darren Fletcher. It's funny, when I was working with Steve Coppell, he always said be very wary about taking Man United players who'd been there for a while, because they have been Man United players for a long time, and sometimes you can get them disguise their deficiencies playing in such a good team. I'm not saying that about Fletcher, but you know, he's banging on a bit now. He's 28. He looks like a Song replacement. I can't see the two of them playing together.
And then, Jacob, what's your view on that move? Do you think it's imminent, and would you be happy to see Fletcher arrive at the club? It's
a difficult one, I think, just because of the lack of playing time he's had for the last, 2 or 3 years. But I suppose there is something certainly in what you say about signing Manchester United players. They sometimes maybe do have a dip when they leave that club. I think maybe the difference with Fletcher is that he still has a lot to prove, that he can still play football at the highest level. And I think he's definitely someone who would bring with him a good mentality.
And and then how good Winston Reid? Do you think he's worth keeping here, or is he not as hard to replace as some might think?
He's been fantastic for West Ham, apart from obviously the slightly iffy first season where he really had a hard time when he came to England. But since then, he's been brilliant. He's been the best defender, probably one of the best players in the team, one of the most important players in the team. But I think that sometimes, as I was saying before, centre halves are not as hard to replace maybe as an Alex Song type or a striker who scores goals. I think obviously they're a very important part of the team, but maybe they're a little bit cheaper to replace.
And then, I mean, obviously he's 1 to 5 to stay at West Ham this window, so it looks like hopefully he will be sticking around. But then there's lots of talk of a move to maybe Tottenham, which would probably hurt more than a lot of other places. What do you make of that, Wally?
I've got to be honest, I think he'll go, Winston. I think, you know, at the end of the season he goes for nothing. West Ham win on Saturday. That puts them just about the 40 points mark. Wouldn't surprise me if they were ready to cash in for however much it is. If he's got Tottenham and Arsenal both vying for him, I don't know. You know, it looks to me as though he's done his time there, Winston, and the perception is that, well, Arsenal, bigger, more successful club, Tottenham, not so much, but they would probably offer him a bigger package to go there. He's a New Zealand boy and lived a long time in Denmark. He's got no real reason to stay. He's a gun for hire. So.
Then obviously possible other departures. We've got Ravel Morrison, who looks to be on his way out to Lazio, having a medical there at the moment. What do you think has gone wrong there? Has he just been given too many chances and not taken them? Obviously you can sort of see there he's not held in high regard these days. with the West Ham faithful?
Well, we took him to QPR when I was working at QPR last year, and he came in and he did really well for 5 or 6 games, scored some goals. But unfortunately, Ravel just can't seem to keep any level of consistent behaviour going. He seems to relax and wants to live his own life. He's a nice kid. He's not, he doesn't cause any problems during training. It's just that some days he might want to be in Manchester, and unfortunately, you can't run a football club like that. You've got to adhere to the rest of the group, and you've got to show some qualities and respect for the other people around you. And unfortunately, with maturity, it might come, but he certainly hasn't got it at the moment, Rav. He probably needs to go abroad somewhere, and there may be a slightly more relaxed attitude towards the way he operates.
Jacob, do you think he'll ever make it as a top-class footballer, or is he just got too bad of a head, really, to ever fulfil his potential?
I hope so, because the brief glimpses we saw of him last season, he was absolutely superb. Obviously, the standout moment was that solo goal against Tottenham, and you can see he has all the talent in the world, but that doesn't mean everything does it at the highest level of football. Maybe, but it's hard to see with him.
Sure. Well, now moving on to the Tweets of the Week segment, we've got a few questions that have been put in here from Twitter for Wally. So having a look at that, having worked with Sam, is he as set in his ways as many supporters believe he is? No,
I think he's a very flexible manager. He's certainly got a blueprint of how he likes his teams to play, but he showed this year that when you get better players, you can play different formations. I don't think he's set in his ways at all, no.
And then obviously following on from that, is Moron Grant the worst manager ever? Both of you can maybe have a stab at answering that.
It was an unmitigated disaster for that season. I've seen Glenn Road as West Ham, so I don't know, maybe that's a contender as well.
Comparison,
I wouldn't say he's probably the worst manager ever. He has managed a national team, but
sure,
certainly wasn't up to it that season.
OK, and then moving on, is there an unsung hero at West Ham that perhaps doesn't get the praise they deserve, Wally?
An unsung? Well, there's Pete the Kit Man.
Kit Man.
He's been there for years. He's a great bloke around the place. But if you've got beat on a Saturday, he's first in. He's a right live wire around the place. He's a top bloke, and he's been there for years and years, and he's a really great guy.
What about in the West Ham team? Are there any unsung heroes, Jacob? You think players who don't get necessarily enough praise?
In the team, I would say that Kevin Nolan gets a lot of stick at times.
To say the least, yeah.
From supporters, and I think that sometimes he does look a bit slow, and you're not really sure if he's on the pitch all the time. But I think he's still useful. I think he's clearly respected within the squad, and
great captain he is.
He's a leader.
Great around the place.
Yeah. So I'll go for Nolan.
Well, on that note there, so what is the off-field impact of Nolan? Do you want to share some more? Compared with other captains maybe you've worked with, is he one of the best motivators?
Yeah, he's right up there. In and around the place every day. He's got good habits. He works and stays around, welcomes new players in, encourages players around the place, positive, terrific in the dressing room on match days, and his goals are what get him in the team. That's now throughout his career. You can look, and if he's not scoring, then you worry about his performance. But he's consistently over his career come up with the goals. Now whether he's got them this year, as I say, I'm not right up on the stats at the moment. But when Sam came in, it's great for a manager to be able to come in, get his signature player in, bang, straight in the dressing room. All the lads respect him. He says all the right things. He goes out and he scores goals. That was the critical signing when Sam came in.
But definitely now looking the present day, obviously doesn't put in enough quality performances to merit his starting in the team. Well, that's the opinion of a lot of fans anyway. Jacob, why do you think Sam does persist with him in his midfield?
Well, sometimes there have been injuries, so he's had to play. But I think if you were to look at the Swansea game at home, for example, I think Nolan played a key part in that game. I think his work rate went certainly unnoticed. The star player in that match was Carroll, because he scored twice, and Song played so well as well, and Sako came on. But Nolan played a very sort of understated role in that game. I think that he was okay against Everton in that cup game. I don't think he's as bad all the time as people make out, and I think maybe people should take a step back and appreciate him a little bit more. He came in at a point in which the club was on its knees.
Yeah.
He didn't have to do that at all, did he? And he was part of the reason that they got up and they are where they are now. It is a little bit annoying sometimes. There was an interview, I think, with Carroll and Nolan a couple of weeks ago and on Sky, and Carroll was making fun of him, saying that Allardyce was his dad. But, you know. Yeah. So I think even the players have cottoned onto that as well.
Well, speaking of Nolan, he's a Liverpool boy, obviously, and West Ham play Liverpool next in the Premier League. It's a tricky fixture. Ahead of the game, I caught up with Liverpool blogger Craig Cooper of The Travelling Cop. Here's what he had to say about his side's chances against West Ham. Looking ahead to the weekend, it's West Ham v Liverpool again. What are your predictions going into that match, considering West Ham have a fit side, Sako's back and scoring?
Yeah. For me, I mean, I personally do think now, obviously, if Sturridge is back, I think Liverpool can nick it. I think, obviously, we've got our formation together now. I mean, the three at the back seems to be working really, really well. Obviously, with Liverpool, Sako, like he's been outstanding since he came back into the side. Emre Can as well. I think Liverpool will just nick it, maybe 2-1.
So, following that, gentlemen, what are your predictions for the upcoming game?
It's Anfield, so Liverpool will win.
Simple as that.
Blunt as it can be.
I don't think so. I think Liverpool have had that game last night, 120 minutes. He's going to have to change that. He fannies around with the team there a bit, and he does a bit of rotation. And he brings Balotelli in, because he only played a few minutes last night. I think West Ham will win. They've got the betting odds there. The West Ham +1 goal, I think, is a good bet, and Liverpool not to score is a good bet.
As you can see up here, yeah, there's a few things.
West Ham +1 is 7-5. I don't think Liverpool are any great shakes. They're talking about saying they've turned the corner. I can't see it.
Anything to take your fancy up there, Jacob? Maybe Sturridge to score in his return would be a classic West Ham thing to happen.
Yeah, I can't imagine that Sturridge will start. So first scorer would probably not be the best bet, but no, it would be a blow for West Ham if he was back, because I think he would change their team hugely, give them much more of a threat. Andy Carroll, 8-1 back at Anfield for the first time, I think.
Be a good story.
Yeah.
Now, you've heard of Mystic Meg. I'm very pleased to bring you Mystic Chris. Iron Views has a resident tipster who will be calling the results for West Ham every week. He has a decent history at getting the score spot on. And as you can see, here's a little taster of the man himself.
Okay, hi Liam, how you doing, mate?
Hey Chris, very well. So Wally and Jacob in the studio here. Say hi to Chris, guys.
Hello, Chris.
Hi chaps, how you doing?
So obviously Liverpool next in the Premier League. Tricky game. What are your thoughts going into that one, Chris?
I think we're going up there with great confidence, and I think it's about time we get a win. So I think we're going to go up there, and I can see us getting a 2-1 win.
2-1 win. Wow, ambitious. Any?
Yeah, I'm going for it. I think Sako to give us a lead, and then obviously Liverpool to equalise just before half time.
8-1.
Then I can see Campbell getting the winner just before.
Okay, well, 16-1 for West Ham to win, 2-1. So maybe not a bad bet. Put a tenner on that. Be a decent return. So who do you think is scoring for Liverpool in that case then?
Liverpool, certainly not Balotelli, I don't think, but I don't, probably Gerrard, knowing our luck, so I'd probably put some money on Gerrard if I was going to, but I'm not, obviously.
Obviously, we've got to touch on the FA Cup as we're still in the competition. I think we've been made fourth favourites at 9-1 to win it this year. What do you give of our chances of going all the way and lifting that trophy once again? Yeah,
definitely. It's going to be a tough game. West Brom, obviously now Pulis has come in. I think they're going to be harder to beat. So I'll definitely take a draw there, bring them back to Upton Park, and I can't see why we couldn't beat them up there again. So yeah, we've got a great chance. Excellent. Thanks for the tips, Chris. If we do lose, we'll blame it on you. All right, mate. See you later. Come on, you Irons. That's it from Iron Views TV this week. Thank you very much to my brilliant guests, Wally Downs, Jacob Steinberg, Chris Predicts, James Longman and Craig Cooper. We'll see you all again next week.